Hi friends! Today I'll tell you a story about Zeno and a rather friendly ghost with a sad past who happened to haunt an old house. Zeno had always been curious, especially about the old house at the end of Cedar Lane. Every day he passed it on his way to school, and every day it looked exactly the same. Old, empty, and creepy. The paint was faded, peeling off in long strips, and the shutters hung crookedly. The windows were dark, coated in layers of thick dust, and weeds grew tall in the front yard, like they were guarding the place from anyone brave enough to step inside. Most kids in the neighborhood didn't even look at it. They walked past it quickly, never saying a word. But Zeno felt different when he looked at that house, like it was calling out to him somehow. One chilly October afternoon, as Zeno walked home from school, his backpack heavy with books, he noticed something strange. As he reached the old house, he felt a chill that made him shiver, even though he was wearing a warm jacket. He looked up at the house, feeling the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. There, in the dusty window on the second floor, was a boy about his age, staring right back at him. Zeno stopped in his tracks, squinting up at the boy in the window. He looked pale, with messy brown hair and a striped shirt, just like the kind Zeno had in his own closet. But there was something strange about his eyes. He looked sad, lonely, like he'd been waiting for a long, long time. Zeno blinked, rubbing his eyes, but the boy was still there, still staring at him. He raised his hand slowly and gave the boy a small wave. To his surprise, the boy in the window waved back. Zeno felt a chill run down his spine, but it wasn't fear. It was curiosity, the kind that made him want to know more, to find out who this mysterious boy was. That night, as Zeno lay in bed, he couldn't stop thinking about the boy in the window. Who was he? Why was he in the old house that everyone said was empty? He tossed and turned, wondering if he'd see him again. Wondering if maybe, just maybe, he could talk to him. The next day after school, Zeno couldn't resist. Instead of heading straight home, he went back to the house on Cedar Lane. He waited by the rusty gate, looking up at the window where he'd seen the boy the day before. The house looked as old and creepy as ever. But after a few minutes, there he was, the boy in the striped shirt, standing in the same spot, looking down at Zeno. Zeno took a deep breath, summoning his courage, and called out, "Hello!" The boy's lips moved, and he seemed to be saying something, but Zeno couldn't hear a single word. It was like his voice was trapped behind the thick, dusty glass. Zeno took a step closer, but before he could call out again, he felt a gentle tug on his shirt. He looked down, startled, but no one was there. When he looked back up, the boy had disappeared from the window. Zeno's heart pounded as he stood there, alone in front of the gate. He knew he should probably leave, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the boy wanted him to come inside. He took a deep breath, glancing around to make sure no one was watching, and pushed open the gate. It creaked loudly, as if warning him not to go any further, but he ignored it, stepping onto the overgrown path that led to the front door. The house loomed over him, its shadow stretching across the lawn. Zeno's hands shook as he reached the porch, which groaned under his weight. He hesitated, then raised his hand to knock on the door. But before he could, the door slowly creaked open on its own, as if inviting him in. "Come in," a soft voice whispered, barely louder than a breath. Zeno's heart raced as he stepped into the house. The air was cold, and it smelled musty, like it hadn't been opened in years. Everything was covered in dust, and the furniture looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. Shadows clung to the corners, stretching across the walls like long, bony fingers. "Hello!" Zeno called out, his voice trembling. A faint sound came from upstairs, soft, almost like footsteps. Zeno's heart thudded as he made his way to the staircase, each step creaking beneath him. At the top of the stairs, he saw the boy standing at the end of a long, dark hallway, near a door that was slightly open. Are you real?" Zeno asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. The boy didn't answer. Instead, he turned and walked through the door, disappearing into the room. Zeno took a deep breath and followed him, his curiosity stronger than his fear. He pushed the door open and found himself in a small bedroom. There was an old bed with a faded quilt, a dusty toy chest, and a wooden chair that looked like it hadn't been moved in years. The boy was sitting on the bed looking at Zeno with those same sad eyes. "Who are you?" Zeno asked, finally brave enough to speak. "My name is Eli," the boy replied, his voice soft and hollow. "I used to live here, a long time ago." Zeno felt a shiver run through him. "Why are you still here?" Eli looked down, his face filled with sorrow. "I don't know. I've tried to leave, but I'm stuck." Zeno felt a pang of sympathy. "How can I help you?" Eli's eyes lit up a little. "There's something I lost. Something important. I think that's why I'm still here. Can you help me find it?" Zeno nodded. "Of course. What did you lose?" Eli looked down at his hands. "It was a silver locket. My mother gave it to me before—" His voice trailed off, his gaze distant. Zeno could feel Eli's sadness like a weight in the air. "I'll find it," he promised. "Where should I look?" Eli pointed to the floor under the bed. Zeno got down on his hands and knees, peering into the shadows beneath the dusty bed frame. His fingers brushed against something cold and metal. He pulled it out, holding it up to the light, and gasped. It was a small silver locket, tarnished with age. It felt heavy in his hand, and he could feel a strange warmth coming from it, as though it had been waiting for someone to find it. Eli's face lit up when he saw the locket. "That's it! You found it!" Zeno held out the locket, but when Eli reached for it, his hand passed right through. Eli looked down, sadness returning to his eyes. "I can't touch it anymore." Zeno's heart ached for the ghostly boy. "What should I do with it?" "Open it," Eli whispered. Zeno carefully pried open the locket. Inside was a tiny, faded picture of a woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. She looked like she had been holding Eli when the photo was taken. "That's my mother," Eli said softly. "I lost the locket the night I got sick. I was so scared and I didn't want to leave her. I didn't want to leave this house." Zeno felt a lump in his throat. He could almost feel Eli's sadness, his longing to see his mother again. "I'm sorry, Eli," Zeno said, his voice choked with emotion. "I wish I could help you more." Eli looked up at him with a gentle smile. "You already have. You helped me remember her." The room felt warmer now, like sunlight was filling the space even though the curtains were drawn. Eli's figure started to fade, becoming softer like mist in the morning. "Will I see you again?" Zeno asked, feeling a pang of sadness. Eli shook his head slowly. "I don't think so, but you helped me. You helped me finally let go." Zeno nodded, trying to hold back tears. Eli smiled one last time. "Goodbye, Zeno. Thank you for being my friend." And with that, Eli's figure faded away, leaving the room empty and still. Sometimes, late at night, he'd look out his window, imagining he could see Eli's face in the shadows, waving at him. And sometimes, when the night was quiet, he thought he heard a soft voice whispering, "Thank you, Zeno."